It's time for Type 40, your Doctor Who podcast from the Spacebook for the Fandom Podcast Network, with me, Dan Hadley, Birmingham's King of the Geeks, and your designated driver. Now, it could be you're completely new to the show, but it's just as likely you've been aboard before. Well, whichever, you'll be safe in the knowledge we're still the free-speaking and big-thinking, eclectic and eccentric show for everyone, whatever decade or century you started watching, reading, or listening along to the adventures of our hero, Doctor Who. And with a new season of Doctor Who itself finally wrapping up on BBC One and all the other broadcasters all over the world, we're making our way through over the final hurdles that are labelled Doctor Who Flux, throwing in a few laughs where we can, as always. So come and step into our TARDIS and share this journey together here with us on Type 40. Yes, we're here again. And this time reaching the point we all knew was coming, where the head writer and outgoing showrunner of Doctor Who, Mr. Chris Chibnall, gives his best stab at sort of connecting all of this stuff and nonsense that has been rolling out to us over the last few weeks. My God. You need a lot of energy. I think you need a lot of extra sort of spare brain cells just to considering it, really. So, yeah, it's been a ratings killer. No surprises there. And I think what's become more clear is what Chris Chibnall's game plan was from the moment that he took the job. His entire take on this show all hinges on the arc of the timeless child. That does seem to be what it's going to close out with. And this is chapter 5 that we're going to talk about tonight of the Doctor Who Series 13, the Flux story, known as Survivors of the Flux. But let's be honest, I think the real title for this particular adventure, episode, installment, whatever it is, I think the real title should probably be Double Down. And with me once again to take stock is the intrepid and the patient Charlotte Shields.
I'm here.
You made it.
Yeah, I'm still watching, amazingly.
Well, I say Doctor Who for life, Doctor Who fan for life, Whovian for life for the Americans watching and listening, which sounds very, very glib. But the truth of the matter, this can be absolutely agonizing when we're being subjected to this kind of TV week in, week out over 5, 6, 7, up to 10 weeks, can't it? We're hanging by the seat of our pants, I think.
At least we've only got 6 this time. So you sort of going, yep, only one more. You can sort of, like you're doing a countdown on the live stream. It sort of helps you get along.
Absolutely. And seeing as this one is even more chaotic than the one we had a couple of weeks ago, we had to reach out, didn't we, to the one man, the one voice in the Doctor Who fandom that I knew. Did I sound convincing then, Charlotte? That I knew would be able to connect it all together for us and at least point to what may lead where. He's a Lord of Time, and he is now an actual real-life Lord, as well as being a YouTuber, a writer, and an artist. It's the Rabbi from another planet, Lord Lebetkin.
Hello, how are you, sir? Yes, I am. I forgot I am lauded. My son for Hanukkah. It's the last night of Hanukkah tonight. Got me as a present an actual Lord. It was on discount from. It was normally $300, but it was discounted down to $80. And so he split it with his siblings, and you get like a foot of land in Scotland, and you actually become a lord. I'm a Scottish lord. So
a lord or a laird? What's the difference? This is I
don't know. I listen. Like Prince Charles went to Wales to understand where he would be the prince of. I should go to that like little corner, that foot of land somewhere in County. It's a real money maker though. It's some gentry somewhere up north. He said, you know what? I bet people pay for that. And you know what? He was right.
Well, Rabbi, I think it's only polite that you go and show your face, at least.
Oh, well, yes. I have to say, I have to find it. I got the plot number. It's a whole legal thing. It really is real.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's real. Which is in stark contrast to Survivors of the Flux. Oh my god! This was when Chibnall had to reveal his cunning plan, right?
Finally
and oh boy,
hand.
did he! Yeah. So I can listen. Before we recount the episode, I just want to say it out so we know it's clear, right?
Yes.
The person sort of in charge, but we wouldn't understand it because we're too stupid, of the division, who is a super evil Illuminati that's been around the entire universe and is in control of everything, always, but totally secret, is Tectun, the stunning and brave woman who found the Doctor, and then for some reason, and then the Doctor's kind of upset that she didn't leave the kid to die alone on the. And yeah, by the way, they find him by this building. Does anybody think to look inside the building? No! They're like, oh no, there's nothing there that could possibly. There's probably an instruction manual. Freaking idiot. Anyway, so she takes her in. She takes in this dog, kills him many times so she can learn how to have that same superpower, right? So as any loving mother would. Then they form this division thing, right? And she's a part of the division, but she doesn't stay, and the division lets her go. However, the Doctor is just so good, so stunning, so brave, in this incarnation. Because all the other time, they couldn't give us on. They're like, well, those ones, screw them. We're not interested. But this one, Captain Doofus, right? This one who doesn't have two brain cells to together. She's so stunning. She's so inspiring that they have to kill her. Now, how are they going to kill her? By destroying the universe, by releasing the Flux. But then, she then evilly stops... What's that?
Whatever could go wrong with that plan.
But then she evilly stops the Flux, destroying the universe by throwing a TARDIS in front of it. And then they contract the Weeping Angels to kidnap her, to take her outside of time and space, so she won't get killed when they destroy the universe, which they're destroying to get her. Like, okay, but I guess they're committed to the plan at this point. And then she says, Eki Thump, no. Does she even say that? I can't remember where we end up on this piece of garbage.
Rabbi, I found the last 2 or 3 minutes just listening to you a lot more entertaining than I did.
Well,
nearly 50 that I had to spend watching Survivors of the Flux.
It's not a high bar to get over now, is it?
It isn't. Charlotte, we're nearly at the final chapter though, as of time of recording. Has this gone quickly for you?
Certain episodes, yes, because certain episodes were blatantly very self-contained, old-fashioned Doctor Who stories.
Yeah.
And then
one episode was.
Well, no, I suppose you had War of the Sontarans and the Angel,
right?
And they felt like
the Angel one. It was the Angel one was just very interconnected with the rest of the garbage.
Yeah, but if you think about the main sort of thing that got moving,
I hear what you're saying. I do hear what you're saying. Right. Yeah, I agree.
It was the Angels, and the episodes like the first one, like the third one, like this one. These feel like Chibnall he's got so much going on, and he's doing like, this is the canon episode, guys. This is the explanation episode.
It is all very labelled.
The next big canon one is tonight when she finds out her lives as a stunning and brave many other Doctors, who none of them were white and male. Right, thousands and thousands. None of them are going to be white and male. I can get that's the only bit of prognosticating I can give you. But
I imagine
you do
a giant pinboard in Chibnall's office with bits of string and little pins all over the place, and him just sort of staring blankly at it, trying to work out where he connected what to where and why, and what colour string means which character.
Yeah,
I mean, look at these things. Look at the moray they have on there. Just that one element is so stupid, right? Do we know about them? Are they new? Are they something that's been hidden? The Doctor seems to know who and what they are, but she doesn't know anything about the Temple of Atropos on the planet Time. I mean, oh God, that's just the stupidest name. I mean, like, it's on the planet Time.
Yeah,
not only am I convinced that some of these,
okay.
Not only am I convinced that some of these characters and names we're probably never going to see again, But what's also struck me is that the one character that they managed to get us to connect with, okay, two if I include another one that we're going to talk about in a little while, the one character that we could put a name to throughout this entire series of Flux, Claire, she vanished again. This week, she's nowhere. It's incredible. Before we get any deeper into this story, though, I think we should just remind you that if you'd like to do some real-time traveling of your own, each and every edition of this show, past, present, and future, is just a tap or two away on the device of your choice if you know where to look. There's dozens of great conversations, reviews, previews, geek outs, and deep dives with all our regular panelists and some fantastic guests. We know there's something for every fan at type40.podbean.com. That's the home of Type 40, as well as all the other places you can catch up with the podcast. There'll be some more about all of that a little later on, as well as the inevitable point where we make contact with the matrix of all knowledge. To us, that's the Fandom Podcast Network, and we'll be having a few words about all the other cult conversations that are going on across all the other shows over there. Yes, so as you can hear, everybody's under starters orders to get cracking here. Hold tight, Chris. This could be a bumpy ride.
Before we go further, I have to get this important message in. The worst point of ever being a Doctor Who fan was if anybody ever saw the last part of Trial of the Time Lord, where Bonnie Langford says in a breathless voice, "A megabyte modem was the Valeyar's evil plan," and it was just like. You hope nobody you knew saw that because it was just embarrassing. Everything else was like that was the nadir of being a Doctor Who fan up until we got the planet Time. Okay, the planet Time lapsed the megabyte mode. Listen, at least Pip and Jane Baker, they just wanted a sciencey name, megabyte mode, and they didn't know it was going to become a household object and then obsolete, like in the blink of an eye. At least they did. Chibnall knew the planet Time is a lame name right now, right? Really?
His thing, I can raise you, planet Time.
Please go ahead.
My mission is love.
Oh God! Let me vomit in my mouth. Oh, yes, you win.
I'm going to go wash my ears out now.
See my.
Okay, we're back to talk about Chapter 5.
What just happened?
We're back to talk about Chapter 5, Survivors of the Flux. And if you decide to skip this one and let us watch it for you, we're going to fill you in now with the general. Can you call this a plot?
No.
You backed the right horse on this one if you skip this. Let me tell you.
This is Survivors of the Flux, again written, daubed out by Chris Chibnall, and it went something like this. As the forces of evil mass, Yaz and Dan face a perilous journey and seemingly insurmountable obstacles in a quest for survival, whilst the Doctor herself comes face to face with a forgotten figure from her own past after she's transported by the Weeping Angels to a Division spacecraft. But who is ordering an Ood to create a final, devastating Flux event? This is Survivors of the Flux, originally broadcast on the 28th of November 2021.
I forgot about Yaz. I forgot how bad it is. Yeah, oh my God! Indiana Yaz and the Temple of Cringe. It's so bad. Okay, if you haven't seen it, don't watch it because it's so bad, right? But it's so bad. It first they do this Tomb Raider thing. They break into this Aztec tomb, and Dan falls down because he's an idiot because he's a white man. Then Yaz comes down gracefully, and she's she's the leader. She knows everything. Yeah.
How did this happen? How did Yaz become the brains of this outfit?
Exactly. That flashlight she's got is what I would trust that judgment more than I trust Yaz's judgment.
No, it's more silly because you have Dan and then you literally have a professor.
Yes!
Last episode was seen to be very sciencey, was very intelligent, seemed to know a lot to do with very much worldy things as well. But no.
Very grounded character as well, that we could believe in.
He's become background now. He's taking orders from Yaz.
For that, and how do they have all this money? Well,
I've got no idea how any of this happened. Realistically, no idea at all. They're pristine the entire time. We see them trekking across the world. 1 minute at the Great Wall of China. Next, they're in Constantinople or wherever it was. Barely a mark on them. Clean as a whistle.
What was the Holy Man scene about?
Oh,
what was that? I thought, like, they're just in the head.
Rabbi.
You mean this guy?
Yeah, what? Like, I don't know. What was he taking the piss at? I'm like, what?
I'll tell you why that character exists. I mean, I had to look up. That's Kami Darwesh, who plays this character Kumar. This character was introduced solely so that people, the former Tumblr generation, could now make memes out of. The only reason that character is there.
Oh, it was so obvious that this was Chibnall trying to be funny. This gave me, do you know, like the Transformer movies when Michael Bay would try to do jokes?
I was always looking at Megan Fox.
Or he'd drop in some wildly eccentric character to run around for 5 minutes and to be all sort of the end of the world is nigh and all the rest of it. Yes. And he'd get squashed by a falling drinks machine or a stomping transformer. And it'd be, well, wasn't that funny? Wasn't that a bit of levity in this nonsense? In defense, I mean, I thought this guy was one that Darwesh actually put in one of the more convincing performances in the entire thing.
Is he famous? Is he famous?
He is now. He's famous as the guy with the turban on the Doctor Who memes. That's how he's famous now.
That's it. He's not like a comedian or some people know.
Oh no, he's not a comedian because it was
so weird.
Written, but it was like a 5-year-old trying to do comedy because obviously the joke was he's lived on top of a mountain. He's not been in touch with anybody, so he wouldn't know what's going on in the world. That's the joke, which isn't a bad joke. But when you do it 10 times in the same scene, you sort of get
and you
played it. Joke.
You played it really weird as well, like this excited, bumbling kid. I didn't understand it. It was just weird.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
The whole thing was
other
weird.
Reason was so we could get a Carvin Easter scene afterwards. Because that was the whole end.
Which also went nowhere. Come and was it call your dog? Was it something like that? Come and fetch your human. This was directed. This episode was directed by Azhur Salim again.
Yeah, you could tell the difference, can't you?
And it had got the same feel, hadn't it? Not just in the way that it looked, but now you're talking about the both of you. I think the same total disconnection between all the actors. They all seem totally atomized. Like some of them are in different shows all together. And in many respects, like we're watching a succession of scenes from lots of other shows sort of spliced together to make whatever this is.
Yeah, because tonal, like Whiplash, you had this comedy scene. You had like also the scene in the ship, which almost at times felt like it should have been comedy. Then you had the Grand Serpent stuff, which was supposed to be dark and sinister. Then you had Jodie.
What sort of John le Carre, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy kind of thing. Totally.
Yeah, and also that's to put all the member bearers in that part as well, which is what they wanted you to be. They want you to get excited, but like it's not very exciting.
I mean, he started by. I mean, let's be honest. Some of the cliffhangers in this season have been quite strong. And last week,
the ones written by Ross C. Davis, probably.
And last week's, it was a prime example. That was a good cliffhanger. When we last saw the Doctor, she'd been encased in stone, and she had become, for all intents, a weeping angel. But just like the majority of these cliffhangers that we've been given in this series,
completely disposable.
It's completely disposable. It's all sorted within 20 or 30 seconds. The Weeping Angels themselves seem to have been reduced to some sort of teleportation system, a taxi service, even at the bidding of, I don't know, whoever.
I guess they can do more things.
Angels are losing their magic.
My understanding is they're like some kind of like for like mercenary force, so you can get to do all kinds of things. And this
kind
is
of like the Jadoon or a private police force.
Yeah, like an evil Jadoon, who are also reasonably evil.
But do you know what these cliffhangers? I've sort of realised what he's done. They're YouTube clips. They purposely are being written and scripted, so you can put on your Twitter account, the Doctor Who Twitter official Twitter, or on the YouTube channel, you can put the 2-minute clip.
Probably some truth in that.
And
although that first cliffhanger is one of the worst things I've ever seen. Hey, I've always wondered what it feel like. What's that then, Jody? The end of the universe. It was so bad.
We've been treated to some real extremes from Jodie Whittaker, all of which have been diabolical. The latest of which was this cringe-inducing scene.
Oh, stop!
Oh,
the lesbian masturbation scene. Yeah, I wasn't quite into that.
Yes, we got a hologram doctor, don't we? Talking to Yaz, it's like a two-way conversation. And the entire thing, I mean, I can't be convinced by this relationship. It doesn't work. I think I've said before, they've got even less chemistry when it's just the two of them than they had when there was a principal cast of 4 in the TARDIS. I'm not any more enamoured with this dynamic now than I was week 1 of series 11. So, and every scene, every chance she gets, I don't know whether they actually recorded the scene together and they added the effect to the Doctor afterwards, but
probably they can't
like
respond to nothing. Look at these are what you think is Laurence Olivier?
Rabbi, how could it be so?
Trying to act at the best of times. Give it to me, Lemon.
But if they were in the same room, there'd be a bit more truth to it than this. I mean, even these tiny, the more intimate moments between these characters, Charlotte, I just don't believe them somehow.
Yeah, because they're not given enough room to breathe. Because especially in this series, he spent half the run separating these two, or having Yaz be put in danger.
Yeah, they're never together.
So
you think it would be a lot easier to keep 2 characters together than it is to keep 4 together.
Yeah. So the problem is when you try to do the scene, and I saw it for what it was as well. This is the blatant Yaz and Doctor were a loving couple sort of thing. He's trying to push, and it's not. I don't buy it. I know certain parts of the fandom do, but for me, it is just 2 actresses who have no chemistry and the forced lines. Like when they were doing the whole "Oh, I miss you," I was like, I'm sorry, you spent, like I said before, most of this series shouting at each other.
Do you think that they were trying to?
I don't think they have no chemistry. I think in real life they do have chemistry. I just think that they're terrible
they do.
actresses.
Yes, people.
I just think they're terrible actresses. That's basically it. They're just really diabolically
bad.
So,
Rabbi, do you think that he was trying to recreate that moment with the Christopher Eccleston hologram in the finale of Series 1, where he's talking to Rose?
Obviously, badly, yes.
Gotcha.
Like Star Trek Discovery, whenever this rips off or comes close to real Doctor Who, it's at its worst. Right? It's absolutely at its worst.
It's quite. I mean, the thing that struck me about
it's horrible.
The thing that struck me about watching this, about reflecting on it in particular, is how, I mean, your summary there, genuinely, that did sort of clear away some of the fog for me. But the rest of it was so furious. I can't remember which scene came after what, which of the various sort of truckloads of exposition that were dumped at our feet came after which. No idea. It jumped around, not just from place across the Earth, across the globe, but time zones, planets, dimensions.
This whole strand was utterly pointless.
Completely.
I mean, like, Fox, at least the Grand Serpents thing had a story to it, right? He had a plan, and that made reasonable sense, right? Earth's going to be the last planet surviving in the Flux. Because the doggy shield around it, which doesn't make sense. But he knows it's going to be the last place surviving. He was some big deal out in the universe. And so he's gone back in time and made himself a bolt hole in this last safe place to, like, barter himself something at the end of the universe. Right? That all made sense.
Why?
This, nothing at all makes, like, they go from place to place to place to place to write a giant message by the Great Wall of China, which no one's going to see for a couple of 100 years for reasons that we don't understand, saying "get your human" or whatever. And then the dog looks at it and it says no.
It's absolutely baffling. I mean, the Carvanista character, I'm still not sold on that. You know, I see why some people like it, I suppose.
I like him. I like Carvanista. I really do. There's one of the few things
I think it's played with a degree of fun, and I can see what they're trying to do with that. But whenever he turns up, I think, oh, yeah, him, rather than, oh, brilliant, Carvanista again, the way that you should after a few appearances. I just think, oh yeah, him. But characters like Jellicoe, played by Kevin McNally, who I thought was really interesting and grounding in the Village of the Angels. I can't work out why he's in this at all. And presumably he's going to be in the 6th one too. So
yeah, he's in the trailer.
Why?
He's in the trailer again with Claire, doing something in the TARDIS, I think.
So Claire will be, and another character, Diane, played by Nadia Albina, she turns up in this as well.
Right.
Last time we saw her, she was a normal woman that you could relate to. You know, one of the performances that I've believed in more in this entire story. But here, when we see her,
she's die hard with one arm.
Exactly. She's been transported wherever for whatever reason to a completely alien environment. She's become this sort of what I thought that was a sort of quasi Ellen Ripley figure. All of a sudden, with a sort of this look of gritty determination.
With one arm.
With one arm.
How are you going to do that single-handed?
But she's got but more. She seems completely at home in her environment, not remotely intimidated, not scared in any way. She's got it nailed down. She's got it covered. So she's gone from being a tour guide to being this crusader, this warrior in the blink of an eye. We've seen none of this growth as always.
Maybe you didn't notice, but she is. You can tell that she's stunning and brave because she's in fact a woman, and she has one arm. So I don't know how you didn't pick up on those signs that she's a she's a stunning and brave, can do anything.
But to give them credit, and I rarely do this with this production team, at least in the script they haven't focused on that with her. At least it's yes, you can see it, it's on screen, but they're not banging you over the head with it. I bet it's in the script.
I bet it's in the script.
Oh, yeah.
You mean do you mean that when they came to cast the character? Because we did see, didn't we? I can't remember who it was that broke this, whether it was leaked or not. We got a look at the script, didn't we, for the Timeless Children? And Chris Chibnall had sort of weirdly put in the what the stage directions, the notes.
It was really creepy. It was super creepy.
It's incredibly this is racist in many respects, you could say. And I do wonder with this, because I think I quite like that actress. I think it's a character, one of the more believable characters I could have actually have done with seeing a lot more of. But now you've said that, was she cast to type? I want to have a disabled character visible in this story. We're going to cast an actress who only has one arm, or did the idea that I know a really good actress to find a character to play in this, I'd like to have her in Doctor Who. Which came first?
Okay, to answer that question, you've seen all of Star Trek, right?
Yeah,
all of Star Trek. There seems to be one place where they've really assigned all the people in wheelchairs. One place in Star Trek, and that's on Discovery, right?
Yes, that's very true.
So there's a reason for that, right? Same reason that they made Diane have one arm. It's just to say that, like, I can't stand them keep telling me that types of people are people too. I believe everybody's a person, okay? I believe everybody's a person. I don't need to be lectured that you're a person if you're in any way different from me, right? I understand that. I've understood that since, I don't know. I think probably always, right?
Our generation were raised very much.
Yeah, I think everybody, and it's just like, it's so transparent. It's so unbelievably transparent, the motivation. It's like,
my bigger issue with her is, for me, all she's become to me is something for Dan to save at the end of the series. She's just become a damsel in distress because
just an investment for that character.
Yeah. And it's like, think about what she's done. Like, obviously, in the first episode, she sort of showed us a bit of Dan's sort of personality and background. And then she got captured. And she's just been captured since the second episode.
Then she was in Once Upon a Time again, wasn't she? And that's pretty much been it.
Yeah.
Again, so talking to Dan.
She's just there for a bit of investment for Dan. And that's my problem with Chibnall's characters. They're not characters, they're functions.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Even the people are plot devices.
I mean, it's incredible. Yeah. Even the information they put in about Diane to make her be able to pass the Bechdel test is put in as a function rather than as a character.
Yeah,
right? It's really, you're right. Everything's a function. He's basically an accountant who should never have gone into writing. Right? It's
Whereas, like, if you look at like Jackie Tyler, because we were talking off stream a bit about that, if you could say, oh, her function, if you tried to use the same logic, is she's Rose's normal life. She's the touching point for her life before the Doctor, for like what she was miserable about, but it's also that sort of familiar sort of, if we've all had a Jackie, sort of we all know a Jackie.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing is, Russell did more than just give her that function of single mum and Rose's mum. She went on the TARDIS. She even got involved in the Journey's End, the big thing, the big sort of everybody gets together. She even had a really good scene in an episode, which isn't very well liked.
He had fun with that character, didn't he? And he rewarded the audience.
What made Jackie Tyler adorable, and then we all love Jackie Tyler, is her flaws, right? Her flaws are things we all relate to. Like she was flirty with the Doctor, and that was wonderful. And she's like a little bit bullshit, and she's like kind of selfish, and like, but she's a good friend to have. You know, we know people like her, right? But she has flaws, which makes people interesting, right? Which is, when you write to identity and you say, well, this person can't have any flaws because they got this identity, then that's where their story ends. Every time when they gender swap a character or make them gay or whatever they do, that's always where the story ends. Like Superman, they just made Superman gay, okay? And now he doesn't do it. He doesn't fly around doing stuff anymore. Superman protests climate change. I mean, like but that's where the story ends.
I'd heard something about that. Well, let's go from one mother to another, from Jackie to this character. Now, when you were last on the show, Rabbi, we threw it out there because there were rumours that Barbara Flynn's character, the great actress Barbara Flynn, been on British television since the 80s, certainly. There was speculation that she was going to be playing the White Guardian, and I completely bought into that. I thought that's exactly who she was going to be.
You know what? You know why you bought into that? Because your brain is attuned to think it's not going to go to the shittest, most obvious thing. You naturally assume I'm not going to do the most stupid thing you could possibly imagine. Oh no, I am. I'm Chris Chibnall. I've done it many times before. You're right, Chris Chibnall. I don't know why I'm surprised. I mean, that's really the conversation that I had.
So she's playing this character Tech2. Oh God. She's playing this. I can't even say the characters' names. Everybody, I can't remember or say the names of the episodes a great deal of the time. I've no idea who a lot of these characters are. The odd instance where I do know who they are, I can't even say their names. Chris Chibnall, you are a shocking writer. Tech-2. So this character, who we've only ever really been told about before by the Master in another story altogether, turns out Barbara Flynn is playing her. After all, the Doctor very briefly met her a couple of episodes ago in another kind of mystery box style daydream. But no, they're face to face in this episode. And of course, Barbara Flynn, being absolutely awesome, acts Jodie Whittaker clean off the screen. The woman is completely outclassed.
Oh, wouldn't she be great as the Doctor?
She'd be bloody
wouldn't
fantastic.
That have been an awesome series? Oh man, kills me.
I mean, to see them squaring up to one another like that.
I mean, look at this. It's ridiculous. Jodie's using every bit of her mass and her power, and she's nothing compared to Barbara Flynn. She's like, her body language is just like so calm. So not threatened. It's incredible.
She barely moves a muscle, even in her face, and she's got so much more. Well, she just seems much more believable, even with lines like the nonsense that she's given to speak in this. So this character of Tech-2, we saw her in the Master's narration of the Timeless Child story back at the end of Series 12. There's no reason why anybody should recognise this character in any way. It's typical. It's exactly the kind of storytelling that Chris Chibnall fell back on when he was doing Broadchurch. There were never any clues to anything that was going on in that. So why would there be? Why would there be in this? I can only imagine what an actor, what as a talent, as consummate and as high profile as Barbara Flynn made of this character when it was given to her on paper. Sorry, I'm playing who again? And who is this? And I'd love to have been there as they were trying to explain to her. Maybe she was just happy to be in Doctor Who. I've just seen that she's going to be in a big finish. I do hope that's better than this terrible part.
What I reckon she did? I bet she called Derek Jacobi. Derek Jacobi's like, oh yes, no, it's all going to be right, and he calmed her down. That's exactly what I think happened.
Yeah, but she is. I won't say she's brilliant, because you can't be brilliant when you're given material like this, but she's welcome weight to all of the fluff that's going on around it, and she immediately wipes the floor with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, as anybody, even Lenny Henry did that. And, it's not that hard, is it really? But as this is all being explained to us again, I mean, this is what we mean when we say we use the expression double down, because all this really did, and all that Tecteun was really there for, was to underline, to reinforce the story that had been told to us by the Master at the end of the last season, to confirm that the Doctor is the timeless child, this horrendous retcon of the Doctor Who origin, this vandalism of Doctor Who's precious romantic lore.
It's just so banal. I mean, really, it's like, it would be great if it was an interest, it was any merit to this story whatsoever.
None at all. Nowhere it isn't. It's just people say, "Oh, you can tell so many more stories now." No, you can't. You can tell the same stories. They just mean that you can tell them with other genders, other ethnicities.
Yeah.
You can slot in. You can do this. You can do that. You can deconstruct. There's nothing positive that can be done. There are no more stories that you can tell with this new origin on the table than you could before. Not a single one. And yet, what have we lost to have this instead? So much, Charlotte.
Yeah, the problem is she's purely there for exposition. And this is how Chibnall was doing this whole overall arc. It's not characters that you care about. It's not forwarding the Doctor's character, because I was noticing this in the Angels episode. All of Jodie's purpose of the Doctor this series is to stand there and ask questions. She's not got any...
It was like it in Series 12 as well.
I mean, that's all she's... I mean, like, she was a bus driver in Series 11. In Series 12, she was like, I don't understand. This can't be. Of course you don't understand. You're a doofus. My God. Like, I'm amazed you can understand how to put your shoes on.
No, but it's like, this is the whole arc. It's a terrible arc, but at least if it was done with somebody with a bit of know-how, this would actually make the character change a lot, having all these revelations. And I think in Chris's head, that's what he thinks he's doing. But because Jodie's not changing, she's just stand there asking questions. Tecteun is just there to give a whole load of exposition to...
We've seen her do this time and time again, haven't we? Just pace from one set to the other, change her expression up from the three settings that it's got, depending on what the response that the material needs to get from her while she stares blankly at whatever. I mean, there's probably, the thing about this whole timeless children thing is there's probably some groundwork in here that would have made a halfway diverting, maybe low-tier sci-fi show. I think, as we've said before, Rabbi, on a cable network somewhere. Even the idea... I noticed in this, we've got these visuals where the Doctor discovers Tecteun's laboratory.
This is nothing new.
I think that you could say that in some respects this is all very British. I think that her contraption with all these universes, it all looks like a tree, so it's got roots and foliage. It seems like Tecteun is Mother Nature, and this is sort of the great ash tree, and all those old stories about the origins of the earth, about the natural order of things, and paganism too. I think all of this is in there somewhere, which would have all been considerably more interesting in another series altogether.
My biggest hope is this, that Chris Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker, upon realizing the utter devastation they've wrought upon their careers, and they're unemployable, right? They hatched the plan from their job in McDonald's, right? They hatched the plan. They pull together their remaining funds, and they pay people to scrub this era from the internet. Like, so it never happened. Like, completely. That would be some kind of weird just loop. That Mobius loop. This horrible affair that they themselves are the ones that erase it from reality. Because this is the opposite of a showcase. This is something that you never ever want anybody to.
It's exposure. It
really
exposure
is.
of
It
everything
really
that
makes
they're
it
bad
look
at.
so bad.
All of their weak points are amplified.
The other issue I had with this whole stuff was it sort of served two purposes. It was the timeless child double down and sort of explaining a little bit, but also the division. We actually got a bit of an explanation what the division is.
You did? You think?
Just,
that make any sense to you?
Well, no, but this is what I'm going to get to. We've just heard the name thrown around a lot. We've not actually had a character even attempt to try and explain it to us. But the problem is Chibnall wrote it in such like a airy sort of, not really nailing down what it was, just saying a load of big impressive words together. And I was like trying to think, like, why isn't the division working for, I know for me, probably for other fans who are similar, like compare it to Unit or Torchwood. We actually had characters once again like the Brig. Obviously with Unit the Doctor worked there, so he was a part of it. That's why we sort of started to care.
It was rolled out over time as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, and also with Torchwood, you actually saw what they were doing a lot. By the time we got to the Doomsday 2-part finale, you saw...
We understood the purpose.
You saw what they did, whereas the division, it still feels like it's really up in the air.
Well, I'd say even more than that, Charlotte. I think he's already just a year on from us first hearing the words, the division, a year, 18 months on. I feel that he's retconned his own creation already, and now it's totally different to something that he gave us little more than 8 episodes ago.
Well, the problem is, and that's another issue when she was explaining that, we started as this small little group in Gallifrey, and that's what we saw in The Timeless Child. That matches that. But I just kept
what she's talking about is religion, isn't it? It's
But what I kept asking is, so you started off small, but you've not explained how you got this powerful. That you can literally hop a universe, you can get weeping angels on your payroll. It's like it's become such a big, powerful thing, and
that she could build and sustain this facility as well that is sat between two universes, because there's been a lot, people have made a big deal of the fact that the word multiverse has been spoken in a Doctor Who episode, I believe, for the first time in this story. Doctor Who has arguably had a multiverse in existence, in continuity, for just over 50 years now, I'd say, if you looking back at stories like Inferno, Battlefield, Age of Steel, Left, all new and classic series Doctor Who, the multiverse, parallel worlds, parallel universes are nothing new.
I know. They always think they've reinvented the wheel. It's the funniest thing. I don't know. There's so much about this doesn't make any sense to me.
What does it?
Well, sorry.
What does any of it bring? What is in its gift of any worth, either short term or long term? I can't think of anything.
Again, it's just made a much more boring backstory, really.
Made it more like every other show on TV, every other fictional universe.
Every other very forgettable. They've taken something truly classic and iconic and turned it into the Arrowverse.
Something that was ironically, Charlotte, the original origin of Doctor Who was timeless.
Yeah, because it was a proper mystery, not Chibnall mystery, which is I'm going to chuck a bit of information
mystery box.
In what? Yeah, it wasn't a mystery box, and it's just so. And I think the reason why it's boring is because the only way you can ever deliver this type of story is exposition. That's the only way you can do it, because it's not about people. It's not about characters working together. It's not about any of those things. It's just information. It's basically the equivalent of watching a Wikipedia entry.
Right, I guess. Yeah.
And that's all Chris is doing. It's just visual Wikipedia.
And once he's done with it,
it in my head,
once he's done with it, once he's done with her, Tecteun, Barbara Flynn, she's pretty much blinked out of existence. Done with her. Turn to Ash.
Instantly.
Any
Right.
more questions? No. Okay, you
There
paycheck's
you
over
go.
there. Look.
Flush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she served her function. So now
Right,
she's not
right.
Everything
Again,
you've been saying.
anymore.
It's more like writing by software, really, isn't it? It's shockingly.
By
I mean,
algorithm.
it is, but like without through the sea of like mediocrity, we do have like things that are extremely good. Jellicoe, I think I love that performance. I still like Swarm, even though it's like he's delivered the most cringy lines. They're like, "We are time and you are space, and I will eat your." It was the most cringiest lines humanly possible. Right? He's still good. I'm still like, I want more of this guy.
Sam Spruill playing Swarm with great relish, and this Roshenda Sandel, she plays Azure, who hasn't done a great deal more, but I think that character is sort of becoming a bit more interesting as it goes on.
Right. I still think it's lampooning Lawrence Fox, right? That's really. I think they want to make Lawrence Fox the villain.
Simply because the way he delivers his lines.
Yeah, the problem though with Swarm, I quite liked him, and I still do. Like I said, it's a really good performance, but he's just become Mr. Cliffhanger. He's just become, I'll pop up at the end of the episode to put some characters in danger.
Right. That was the end of episode 2.
Haven't we had? Yeah, we've had 2 cliffhangers so far, at least 2 where Swarm has walked into a room and threatened somebody. Yeah, and that's been largely it. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I find this whole thing. So thin and unconvincing.
What was the title of episode 3 again? That really awful one where that came
Once
out.
Upon Time.
Yeah, where he had the Doctor's monologue at the beginning, her internal monologue. Oh God, that was so cringe. Oh, running the places very quickly in my eye. I see who's in trouble.
Talking about plot devices, let's quickly talk about. I think we might have forgotten that these 2 characters exist. Let's talk about Belle and Vinda, shall we?
Oh yeah, the Doctor's parents.
Well, that was going to be my question. Really, I'm getting this sinking feeling as of time of recording. We've got 1 episode left of this stuff to see, and these characters exist just on the outskirts of everything that's going on. They're 2 plates that he is 2 parallel plates that he is spinning at either end of a big room just to keep them there. There were 1 or 2 scenes they were in at best. I think both Thadia Graham and Jacob Anderson are good enough in these roles. Neither of the characters are particularly interesting, particularly credible. I mean, they must be there. They must be there for some reason. And knowing that she is carrying a child, she wouldn't be carrying a child unless that was going somewhere too. We've got a whole arc here called the Timeless Child. It really has to be that simple. And the idea that these 2 characters are the Doctor's parents, it makes my teeth itch. You know, the fact that we're going to have another layer of origin. No origin at all for 55 plus years. Then we have 1 wave of origin and another.
Okay. It's all going away. None of this is staying. Okay. This is all going to be gone by 2023.
Click your heels together and say there's no place
like
that.
Honestly, right now my copy of Twice Upon a Time fades out. Fades to white. Right. If Rusty Davis isn't doing a full reboot, I'll keep it that way. If not, I'll find some way of linking it with it. That is not a bit. This is all going. Okay. Rusty Davis stands to make a fair amount of money if he can make Doctor Who successful, like super money if he can make Doctor Who successful. Plus, I do believe he feels his reputation has been tarnished. I really do. All right, I think because it used to be like I bought Doctor Who back, and people think, "Oh, Doctor Who, that's an incredible thing." But entertainment industry just exists in the freaking moment. They don't remember 2 minutes ago, and they go, now he goes, "I brought Doctor Who back." They're like, "Oh, that garbage." Right? It doesn't matter.
Thanks.
I think it's going to be woke. I mean, I think the rumor of the guy from It's a Sin,
Amari Douglas.
What's the name?
Amari Douglas. You're talking about.
Yeah, listen. I think I've done some little bit of research. He sounds like he'll be excellent. I have no problem with the black.
Yeah, I think he's fantastic. Brilliant.
Yeah, I think it's going to be woke, whatever. But I think most importantly, it's going to sell, right? If it's gonna sell, it's gonna be good. So that's really the bottom line.
He's not an actor that when I watched It's a Sin, I know we're going slightly off on a tangent. When I watched It's a Sin, there were two actors that I felt just totally lit that up. And I hate to say this, Amari Douglas was one of them. He was the main one. Whenever that man walked into a scene in that particular
crackling
character,
screen presence.
He had amazing screen presence, chemistry with absolutely everybody, completely and utterly magnetic. He was part of a strand of the story that ran with Stephen Fry's character, and obviously Stephen Fry's been around forever. He's a good, solid actor, but he's a big personality, and a younger actor of about 27, 28 could have easily have disappeared next to Stephen Fry, but Amari Douglas absolutely went toe to toe with him. But talking about picks for the Doctor, for years, a pick that I had for the Doctor during the entire time that it was in its wilderness years was the actor Robert Bathurst. And of course, we're now several years on, and Robert is no longer the golden-haired 40-year-old who starred in such things as Cold Feet and early episodes of Red Dwarf. He's now in his mid-60s, and we got to see him finally in Doctor Who in this episode playing Farquhar, who is I know. Sounds like, I'm sure there was a name. There was a character in a Carry On film called Stuart Farquhar, and so whenever I hear that, I always think of that. Stuart Farquhar was played by Julian Holloway in the Carry On movies. But yeah, Robert Bathurst is in this at last. He plays a proto version of the Brigadier again, doesn't he? We get several Brigadier,
like a stupid Brigadier. I mean, I wonder if we're going to have Dr. Nookie in this week's episode. That'd be that will certainly come right up.
One can only hope. But this whole strand of story, again, not only do we see Robert Bathurst playing this Farquhar character who's in it for a couple of scenes as a bumbling fool and then quickly killed, but it does give them an opportunity to reintroduce a unit and the character of Kate Stewart. Still
they
played
got
by
to
Gemma Redgrave.
their resolution gaff. Right.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
I guarantee you they say, this was their plan all along. No, it wasn't!
Did Chris Chibnall have a change of heart over UNIT and realise that he'd cocked it up by disbanding UNIT in the 2018 Christmas special? Or was this part of his plan all along? And I'm with you, Rabbi. I think that it was a massive cock-up. And he's been told that by the end of his time in Doctor Who, he needs to have all of the toys back in the box. And
I've heard that rumor as well, which means where is this going, right? It seems to me that they're going to carry on in a new... I think by the end of this episode, we're going to be in a new universe at the end of this episode and exploring it for her last three. And the new universe is going to be based on the old one. So it'll be...
another reset, like we got at the end of the Big Bang, the Matt Smith story, where everything sort of contracted and expanded.
Essentially, yeah. And then I think Russell Davies will probably start off with some kind of reboot.
Yeah, because I quite like the Kate stuff, because I knew she was in this episode.
But again, she's a very dependable actress, isn't she? Gemma Redgrave is good in everything. She plays this part. She plays this part as well as she needs to. I won't shower with praise because it's not that kind of part and she's not that kind of actress, but it does ground it again, doesn't it, Charlotte, somehow?
Oh yeah, it's because the only bits I sort of enjoyed at all was basically her and Craig Parkinson, because they were the only actors that were actually doing anything.
He's been consistently good throughout all of this. I don't care about the character, don't care about this strand of the story whatsoever, but I think he's been excellent.
Yeah, listen, if he could be the master and Sacha Dhawan been the meddling monk, I think they might have been onto something.
Yeah, but the only, like I said, I really like his acting, and I like, because for people who don't know, that actor's really good at playing villains. That's sort of he's a bit typecast now, but that's what he tends to play. So they've given him a character, obviously, he can do, and he's relishing in it. But once again, you can't fully connect with his character because you don't know enough about him. He's sort of just, especially in this episode, he seemed to just so seamlessly get into UNIT and get to all the important people and sort of get the power without really... There's a few throwaway lines about time travel and sort of things he can do, and obviously his power, But it just seems like Chibnall just is like, right, you're my villain. You need to get to this point, and I'll just plop you there without
why on earth did he?
Yeah.
Why on earth did he infiltrate UNIT of all things as well? Because this is another thing that the fandom have been angry about with this episode, because it seems to throw out all the dates for when UNIT was founded, throws into question 2 who founded it, and even why. So why do this unless you had unless you had been given a remit by, I don't know who, by whoever employed Chibnall in the first place to put all the toys back where you found them. Because realistically, a character like that and this entire plot it would have been a lot easier. It would have been a lot more fit for his purposes if it hadn't have been Unity infiltrated. But actually, Torchwood, now you've mentioned that setup, because it was already clandestine anyway.
Yeah,
well,
near Unit.
Well, it could be that's what was the original plan was before they got rid of John Barrowman.
Oh, of course. Yeah, so some of this could have been reallocated.
And he thought, oh, good, we can do unit stuff, and we can have like the old unit headquarters and that sort of thing.
That was a nice moment where we heard Nicholas Courtney's voice from behind the door. I thought that was done really, really well.
See, I didn't think that was his voice.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it wasn't John Colshaw. Not this time. It was a sound clip of Nicholas Courtney. I have to
listen again before tonight's episode.
But generally speaking, there were mentions, weren't there, of the War Games, the classic 1966 story, which predated Unit and was, I won't say a dry run for Unit, but is seen as a step towards the Troughton era, which was when we eventually did get Unit and all those elements of Doctor Who that would be so prominent in the early 70s, where all those pieces of the puzzle sort of came together. But generally speaking, I think that going anywhere near Unit like this and mixing up dates and throwing in extra characters and question, because it's always been accepted that the Brigadier founded Unit, isn't it? And now maybe he didn't.
Well, no, we now know he didn't, because the first scene with Serpent was a fella saying, "I'm thinking of setting up Unit." So we now know the Grand Serpent was to do with the origin. And that's another thing of that. This thing of Chibnall seems to be an obsession. That it's like anything that has any long-term, like canon sort of relevance or importance, it's like he has to insert himself into it, or through his characters, and that's what it
does seem to me that he is trying to leave no Doctor Who stone unturned, untarnished by his ambition to have affected absolutely everything that fans have speculated about, either seriously or just in jest in conversations in pubs 20, 30 years ago. He's, I can turn that into canon, I can make that work, I can make that feasible. And now it seems to me that he's trying to sort out the old Unit dating debacle, the controversy about when the Unit stories take place, when that's just something that fans laugh together about now and again. Right. It's not something the general audience are aware of. It's not something that ever affects our viewing. It's not something that truly any of us have actually really cared about. But Chris Chibnall thought that he could do what other writers that have come before, what Russell wasn't willing to do, what Robert Holmes wasn't willing to do, what Terence wasn't willing to do. He's better than all of those creatives. I can do it all. I can reinvent this show in my image. I honestly think that's how he looks at it.
It's probably he's such a bad writer because he's not very clever. I mean, that's the same reason why Jodie Whittaker's a bad actress. He's a bad writer because he's just not very clever. And if you're not very clever, you're not going to know how bad you are. So it's kind of like this weird catch-22. Right, but it's like, he's absolutely awful, and he doesn't realize he's absolutely awful. And so he thinks he's good.
If it hadn't have been for the fact that there's no way that they could have seen the Disney Marvel Studio show Loki earlier in the year, because obviously they would have written and filmed this. This was filming around this time last year, wasn't it? Up to around Easter, before Loki had dropped. Because there are certain similarities in this with all those sort of fixed points in time and time jumping and multiple realities and things.
No, wait. They were filming this in like January. That's really when they were started. They started in like November.
Loki started around April time, something like that. April, May.
Yeah, but no. The reason Loki and this are similar is because they come from the same school of writing, which is very tired, boring ideas. Where you basically the ideas are a platform to put these really annoying ideas, which are normally like, let's get rid of those evil white men. And that's essentially what Loki was about. So so then everything becomes perfunctory. So it doesn't matter how basic it is. Then you're on the planet Time. Then you're in the Time Agency. Like who cares? Now we're ripping off Fallout. It doesn't matter. All it matters is that's a black woman, right? And that's the only thing that matters. It's the weirdest thing.
And as he's sort of eating up all of these other concepts, ideas, and spending characters left, right, and centre, and wasting talent like Craig Parkinson, like Barbara Flynn, all these great actors who are just sort of in the outskirts, really, not really doing anything of any great consequence. And it's certainly not adding anything to their career in the long term. Whilst he's doing all that, he's also looking at concepts, mainstays like Unit, completely messing up their continuity, going to characters like the Weeping Angels, a much more recent creation that was still shrouded in mystique, and it was still the stuff of nightmares, I think, until this season. He's managed to devalue them.
I guarantee you, Moffat is coming back to write a revival Angels episode with the Rusty Davis era. Guarantee you, he wants to ruin. He is so pissed off.
Well, now I'm looking, Rabbi, at the Ood, who's sort of skirtling around in this episode too, wondering why is there an Ood there? What's he going to do to them now? That's Silas Carson back as the voice of the Ood. He's always played the voice of the Ood. You know what? That's the conclusion that I'd come to. It was a costume that was handy. People who remember this show when it was good will have recognised the guy with the squid face. I remember him from when I used to like this show. Put him on screen, stick somebody in that costume. Bingo, there we are. I think for the people out there who were hungry for Doctor Who to have an aggressive sort of season-long arc over the last few years, because a few people have said to me, why don't they do a Doctor Who season that's just one long story? I've heard that quite a lot. I even heard a lot of people at the start of this, when Flux was confirmed that it was going to run like that, very excited. Even people who've been away from the show for a little while, either because of Jodie's horrendous performance or other matters, people who were excited by that. I think if you were one of those people, just 5 episodes into this, you will probably have changed your mind. You'll be thinking, what was I thinking? Be careful what you wish for.
Oh, you know what? I still don't think it's as bad as season 11 and 12. I really don't.
No, it is. It is better than them, but only because it's the fact that there's no identity politics. Very little identity politics in it does mean it scores above for me, and I can see that Chris Chibnall is trying. We've spoken before about he's throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks, but it is in an effort to entertain, but it's in his own interest as well to make this stuff stick, because this is his legacy now.
At last he's scared. Right?
I think fear is a motivating factor. I agree.
Yeah, by the way, if you want to see a really good Peter Capaldi single season story, like one story serialized, check out Dr. Alex's channel. I've been plugging this guy like crazy. Dr. Alex's channel.
Dr. Alex will be on the show. He'll be coming on to talk to us on Type 40.
Oh, good. I hope so. Yeah, this is it. And again, this is what I'm planning plug. I just had it here because I'm reading it because I like it. Okay, check this out. This is season 13. This is you want season 12. Season 13 is one complete serialized story starring a Capaldi Doctor. It's a sequel to season 12, which is a whole season, which is a more regular season that acknowledges and then erases the Jodie Doctor completely in a wonderful way, right? And it really, really worked. I listened to this, and he puts it out on YouTube as a book on tape. You can buy the book if you want. It's it's the best Doctor Who being put out right now, by far.
Being cleansed by Dr. Alex. Going back to what I was saying about the Weeping Angels and Doctor Who lore, I am slightly scared. We've only got one installment of this left, and the cliffhanger to this story seems to hinge on the pocket watch. The famous Gallifreyan pocket watch that's become symbolic in itself. Originally seen, wasn't it, back in series 3, connected to that whole story about the survival of the Master and human nature and family of blood, when the Doctor goes undercover as a human, doesn't he? So this is part of the lore, again, from a time when the series was really, really popular. From a time from the Russell T Davies era.
This is all going to be dropped tonight. My firm prediction is that the specials are going to be kind of standalone-ish after this, right? But this one's is going to be heavy lore. The special's going to be kind of standalone-ish. Then the last one is going to be very Doctor Who lore heavy, right? When they whatever.
It's going to be a massive turn-off, I think. And when he's doing so by bringing out just the same as the chameleon arch that he used in Fugitive of the Jadoon to introduce us to the fugitive Doctor. Here we've got the pocket watch again, which, well, when we've seen it before, it contained the essence of a Time Lord, didn't it? It was their more or less their entire being that made them a Time Lord, not just their memories, Charlotte.
Almost like a soul. I sort of saw it as like the soul of.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's more than memories. So I didn't notice this until I saw a few other people point it out. So he's changed the pocket watch because now it's just memories, which I didn't click.
Who knows? Who knows? It doesn't make none of this matters.
But I was like you. As soon as I saw the pocket watch, I was like, oh, so we're not going to get the answers this week because you're teasing us again. And then this is guaranteed. Then in the last episode, we're just going to have a massive flashback. No,
I reckon there's going to be a bunch of stuff. I think that's going to be about a third of the episode will be the flashback. I think the rest of it is going to be wrapping up the Flux and... however, look, I mean, they've got to wrap this thing up. How long is tonight's episode?
I think it's more than 60 minutes. I think it is a bit longer.
Oh, goodness!
No, but here's the problem, Rabbi. Even if it's only a third, it's still incredibly boring to sit there and watch flashbacks. Because that's what we got as a child.
We talk through
I find
another
the whole
story.
thing agonizingly boring. I mean, like, I don't know how you differentiate between that being agonizingly boring and the other things being agonizingly boring. Doctor Who is... Oh, it's only an hour. Thank God. You really scared me.
I thought
6:20 to 7:20.
The prospects of getting some actual drama rolled out in that hour, and not just more exposition, Charlotte, just as you've described, more dumping of information that might make Chris Chibnall feel like he's Billy Big Bollocks for half an hour. That's just going to pass in time, that Russell T Davies certainly isn't going to care about when it comes to his turn to hopefully reinvigorate and re-inspire from 2023 onwards with his all-new Doctor Who. So it all just feels like people puffing out their chest. And yeah, I hate to say that expression about Chris Chibnall jangling his keys, it's so right, so appropriate. And you know, the only thing that gets to me about it in the long term is that I do feel that the Weeping Angels have been damaged, and I feel that, just as you've said, Charlotte, this does create grey areas or completely reinvents what the pocket watch was supposed to be for, what these Gallifreyan fob watches were meant to be, what they were meant to represent, and what they mean to a generation of Doctor Who fans, just because it suits Chris Chibnall's short-term goal to get him out of a bloody stupid storyline that he should never have started telling. I think he intended to use it from the beginning, frankly. I don't think he's going to get out of jail free card. I think he's always been completely creatively bankrupt. Speaking of creatively bankrupt, I have to go. So yes, the Rabbi, the Lord of the Land, he's going to dematerialize now. We're going to catch him again at some point in the future. Can we tempt you back on to a later show, Rabbi, to talk about this?
Listen,
in the rearview mirror.
I'm easily temptable, baby. I'm easily temptable. It doesn't take much. Very good. Doodle bit, everybody. Thank you for having me on.
Good to see you again. Bye. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Okay, yes. So as of recording, there's one more episode of Doctor Who Flux left to roll out. Just as the Rabbi said, it seems to be a full hour's worth. Aren't we lucky people? I'm going to try and do that in one sitting. I think when it came to watching Survivors of the Flux, Charlotte, this was a 48-minute piece of TV. You know how long it took me to watch this?
A week.
Not quite, but it was nearly 2 whole hours.
Well,
in between the starting.
It was just so scattershot. We were saying this at the beginning when we were talking about episode 1, but this just felt like that amplified. And it's like, the problem is that Chibnall doesn't seem to understand that. He thinks just to have his characters having any movement is interesting. But no, Chris, that's not interesting. Seeing them go from location to location or having them being talked at. Like, he seems to think these make drama. And they don't. And this episode, you just you didn't know where to keep your attention, almost, in like the worst way. Because, like you said, we had Belle and Vinda, and they were just there for nothing. You had Carvinista there for nothing. So I don't blame you for taking you 2 hours, because it gave you nothing to sort of cling on to. As this is
it was such a patchwork, Charlotte. I mean, the thing that when I look back on it and Doctor Who history, and you think, okay, it was mentioning the war games, we've got pocket watches, we've got weeping angels, we've got all those things, and yet, and often with Doctor Who, when you've been watching it for a long time, as I'm sure that some of the people who came to it with the new series know just as much as the classic fans do, when you watch an episode of Doctor Who, you're almost always reminded of other stories from times past, be it the Pyramids of Mars, maybe, or Kinder, or Destiny of the Daleks, or the Ice Warriors. You get these swirling images of past adventures and glorious times. But with this, the one thing that stood in my mind, the one thing it reminded me of more than anything else, was the 1993 Children in Need charity special, Dimensions in Time, which is famous for being all over the place, incomprehensible. And I think it's something that people sort of hand wave and say, okay, it's excusable because it was for charity. Chris Chibnall does not have that excuse, does he?
No, it's because it's actually supposed to be canon, proper series Doctor Who. And you expect a lot more. And I think that's the issue. Even though I think we have got lower expectations because of the last 2 series, but I still think there's a level you expect with Doctor Who. And in this episode, it was just, I sort of said when it was episode 3, when I was talking to you sort of privately, that reminded me of like a child trying to paint something, like with this masterpiece artwork, and it's like a 2-year-old trying to do it. And this felt more like a person just hitting their head against the wall, like saying bits of plot at you while they were doing it.
Well, I can't ask the Rabbi because he's had to go, obviously, but I can ask you, how many multiverses out of 5 do you give Survivors of the Flux?
I give it 1 because I like Craig Parkinson. That's where I can put it.
Yeah. I think I've given previous installments of Flux, I've given them 2 stars. I've never gone above a 3. And I think that because this is no worse, really, than Once Upon a Time. But because they keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again, I have to drop it down to a 1. This is yet again another steaming great turd, completely indefensible. Most of it is completely forgettable, and a great waste of talent, both behind and in front of the camera. And if I never see this episode again, it'll be a millennia too soon. It's that simple. All this talk of division, it's time we divided our time now to walk across to a whole multiverse that's running parallel on the Fandom Podcast Network for a few words about all the other podcasts from all our friends over there concerning all those other great sci-fi and fantasy franchises.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. We'd like to continue to feed your ears by inviting you to listen to these other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. It starts with our flagship show, Culture Clash, discussing the latest in entertainment pop culture. Bloody Kings, Immortals Take Notice, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theaters, where we celebrate our favorite movies. Time Warp, the fandom flashback podcast discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie and TV pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Union Federation, our Star Trek and Orville show. Hair Metal, the 80s and early 90s rock metal podcast. Type 40, our show covering the time-traveling Doctor Who universe with host Dan Hadley. Lethal Mullet, an 80s and 90s action film podcast with host Adam P. O'Brien. Also check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast with hosts Scott, Derek, and Nathan. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast, a deep dive into the final frontier with host Mark Newbold and Adam P. O'Brien. And check out our newest shows, The Fandom Show, our monthly Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube exclusive show about the month's hottest topics in fandom, and the FPN True Believers MCU podcast, discussing the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the related Marvel television and streaming MCU universe, including the connections to the original Marvel comics. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on several platforms. Please subscribe to the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel to receive notifications of new podcast episodes and live events. You can enjoy all of the Fandom Podcast Network audio podcasts on our master feed at fpnet.podbean.com. The Fandom Podcast Network is on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast and iTunes. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. You can also find the Fandom Podcast Network on Instagram at Fandom Podcast Network and on Twitter at FanPod Network. Thank you for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
Oh, we do love to tease and tantalise you with all that, don't we? And we can even clothe you to there's merch to match all of those shows, including Type 40. If you head over to tpublic.com, you can search for the Fandom Podcast Network and find a store full of all the team colours for all of those shows on everything from the T-shirts to phone cases, mugs, tapestries, you name it. Treat yourself, treat your other selves, and it all goes to support the Fandom Podcast Network into the bargain, so everybody wins. Charlotte is rooted to the spot here to make our way through a quick look at the ratings for this episode of Doctor Who. It's not been great so far, has it? In the 4 weeks that have come before, it's been largely a steady decline. There was a bit of a resurgence, I think, based off the fact that the Weeping Angels were in the previous episode, but generally speaking, unsurprisingly, the story of the ratings woes has continued with Doctor Who this season, hasn't it, Charlotte?
Oh yeah, I think this 6-part sort of serialized route they went has killed casual viewers, and obviously the bits that the cardcore don't like. But yeah, I think the structure's really hindered it for viewing figures.
And to be fair, Charlotte, I suppose it could have gone either way, couldn't it? Because arc storytelling, Chris Chibnall, the Broadchurch series is a prime example. If you've got the right story and the right actors in the right roles, and you know your audience and you're in the right slot, then you can sort of work miracles with this kind of event storytelling. Torchwood Children of Earth is another great example, isn't it? And yet it hasn't happened with this, has it? It hasn't caught on. Why do you think that is? Just quality?
I think it is quality, but I think more it's Chibnall. His ambition was too big, and he's put too much in these episodes. A viewer might start to feel like, oh, I know this episode, or I'm getting the storyline. He throws you to another character. And I think because he's done that for a good chunk of these episodes, it's just made people...
always be something in any given one that you won't have seen where it's come from, and it will put you off any interest you've got in where it may be going to.
Yeah, and I think you need to have a core through line that you sort of each episode needs to add to, and I felt like he's not proper built up each episode. When we got sold this serialized thing, they said each episode's going to like add onto the other, or they're going to connect a lot. I can't remember the exact.
They talked a great game, didn't they?
About that, and it just, some of these episodes have felt like they've nothing to do with the one previously or afterwards.
Well, I'd even say that there's been 2 episodes that were pretty much just filler, just people milling around, bumping into other people, having inconsequential conversations about things that didn't really matter. There's only really been one episode, the War of the Sontarans, that felt like it was holding its own, that it was coalescing into something that people, if they were a casual viewer, would happen upon it and feel like they've been actually told a story.
Yeah, and you can see the pattern. Whenever he has to deal with the overall arc, whether that sort of division, I've sort of classed that as part of the Timeless Child stuff now. Whenever he's had to touch on that stuff, it has fallen flat. But when he's just had like a Sontaran story for a bit, or a Weeping Angel story for a bit, that's been received a lot better because it's quantifiable.
People know what the threat is. Sometimes it's something they recognise. They know when they're meant to be scared because that's the scary statue. That's the scary bloke who looks like the potato. There's some conventional action in there, or some jump scares or whatever. And people like all that stuff, don't they? I've always said that people really, in their heart of hearts, even though we talk to a lot of people who, in this fandom now in particular, who are very, very cynical, I think at the heart of it, people do still want to be entertained, don't they?
Well, they want an adventure. Doctor Who, especially the revival, has been an adventure. And that's what, even when Moffat could get very bogged down in his sci-fi and his complicated plots, he could still give you a really fun adventure. That you'd be carried away with the characters as well. And it's Chibnall's, like I said,
it does feel a while since we've had one of those. Burst that's a great word for it. Yeah, you get flashes and flourishes, but never anything that holds a course. And the ratings have mostly held their course, the course that goes permanently down until this episode. This one saw a slight uptick. There was 3.82 million people tuned in to see Survivors of the Flux on the Sunday. And I think that I don't think this is any reflection on this particular episode at all. I think it's everything to do with the fact that the Weeping Angels were in the previous week and it ended on a pretty good cliffhanger.
I think also, when I saw the reaction online, that's the most positive I've seen the fandom after a Chibnall episode, after that village. Even though I had my issues with it, the majority of people I was seeing were basically saying, "Oh, this is like Doctor Who from years ago." Like we
really? So
like that sort of euphoria, and I think people, like you said, probably with that cliffhanger as well. But I think people generally enjoyed, for the first time, bits of a Chibnall episode.
Seeing and hearing some of the bells and whistles. Yeah, it did go slightly up. So the previous week, which was Village of the Angels itself, that was 3.45 million. So this went up to 3.82 million. Obviously, any optic isn't.
That still isn't a massive up. I know certain people are celebrating it, but it's still, I think it's not enough of an uptake for safety. That's enough of an uptake that if you have a bad episode, you're going to suffer the one afterwards, which is what I think is going to happen for episode 6.
I think it's absolutely unavoidable that they'll be down again for the finale.
Even though it's a finale, his pattern hasn't been good for finales anyway, because I think
the fashion was, Charlotte, during Stephen Moffat and Russell's time, the ratings would go up again. If they had lost some, they would always go up again for those final 2 installments, but the last one in particular.
Yeah, and I think from my memory, The Timeless Children was down, and I think Battle was down. I could be wrong on series 11.
They both were, yeah. And sure enough, our belief that the slightly higher rating for this episode was everything to do with Village of the Angels and nothing to do with this. They would seem to be supported by the AAI figure, the Audience Appreciation Index figure. That's back down in the middle of where it had been for Village of the Angels and Once Upon Time. So at 77, that's sitting at 77, down 2 points from Village of the Angels itself. but this is the figure. This is how we can judge how the audience for this episode, how much they enjoyed what they saw on the night. These figures are registered directly after transmission as an instinctual response. Did you enjoy this? And so the idea is with this, because I know that people are still not too familiar with what an AAI figure is. It's the measure of how much the audience enjoyed the program. The score out of 100 is compiled by a specially selected panel of around 5,000 people who go online to a secure website to rate and comment on the shows that make up their television week. So the fact that that's gone down again says it all. It's not as low as the all-time low of Once Upon a Time of 75, but it's heading back down there. And yet another episode of the Chibnall era it's coming in the 70s, which is, if it was any other show, Charlotte, as I understand it, these kind of AAI figures would get a show cancelled.
Well, we've been saying this for years. All the data about this era, if it wasn't Doctor Who, let's say this was like a first run of a new sci-fi series on BBC One, it would be cancelled. It's only because it's Doctor Who. And now, because I honestly think it's only because they know Russell's coming. That's keeping this show technically on air. It's like you've said before, it's treading water now. They know they've got Russell coming. They just have to get these last episodes, get those last specials out, and then they can put this in the rear view mirror. And that's the attitude I'm getting from the BBC.
Yeah. They can't wait to have it away, have it out of the schedules so that they can usher in whatever's going to come next. 3 years of banal nonsense that Chris Chibnall has rolled out on the screen for the audience of what is supposed to be a populist mainstream show. I don't think there's anybody out there in TV land left who really gives an F about this show. The fact that the reappointment of Russell T Davies did make headline news 3 or 4 months ago now, that was met with excitement. That does lead us to believe that there are glimmers of hope, there are flickers of affection still in the hearts of the British public for Doctor Who. Who knows what could happen? I think that anything could happen in the next 2 years. TV can change a lot between now and then. Who knows how Doctor Who will be delivered, by which point Chris Chibnall will be long gone. I can't imagine. It's kind of like the Rabbi said earlier, Charles. I can't imagine where he's going to go, who will have him, what sort of stories he even wants to tell next, and who for. And as for Jodie Whittaker, I can't help but believe that her career has probably been damaged by her part in this. She's been exposed as an actress who was out of her depth, publicly leading a show on screen for 3 years and leading it to its lowest ever figures, and failing in this part, failing to make her mark. However you want to label it, whatever you want to call it, an all-round failure. We'll be back. We'll be back though to talk about the season finale, chapter 6 of Doctor Who Flux, called The Vanquishers, which I do really like that episode title. It speaks of classic 1960s Doctor Who to me. I'm not expecting classic Doctor Who thrills from this. I do think it's all over, but the shouting, the fact that it lasts an hour, at one point I would have relished that, Charlotte, an extra 10 minutes worth of Doctor Who, but I just think it'll be more undisciplined nonsense, half realized ideas, ill-considered performances, characters completely disappearing, and a few teasers for what's left of his era, which is just 3 specials after that, during which I'm sure that he has plans to completely cock up something else.
Is it BBC Latin?
I think he plans on making a squirm for as long as he possibly can. So yes, as of time of recording this, Doctor Who Flux concluded on Sunday, the 5th of December on BBC One in the UK. It could be that you're still watching them too, whenever, still catching up. Listen and watch out for our review of the finale in due course, whenever that is. The entire series of Doctor Who Flux will be available on DVD and Blu-ray on the 22nd of January 2022 for the completists out there who can't bear not to have it on their shelves in whatever form. Who knows? Who knows when I'll get around to buying these? I think they'll have to be giving them away. And I always used to be a completist, but I think this could have cured me of that. That's the old girl that's starting up and calling time on this trip in our TARDIS. I'll be back soon, though, with another edition of Type 40. Look out for that wherever you found this. It could have been on the dedicated home of Type 40, type40.podbean.com, or over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Google Play, Podbay, iHeart Radio, Stitcher, Player, Spreaker, all those places, or on YouTube, on the Spacebooks YouTube channel. You can come now and see us as well as hear us in these video tracks. And of course, we're still on the Fandom Podcast Network's master feed with all those other shows that Kevin was telling you about early on. So many treats for your ears pretty much daily. Maybe you'd like to get in touch with us and have your say. You can do that through our social media accounts, Instagram and Twitter at Type40Doctor or you can email us type40doctorwho@gmail.com. And if you're feeling really, really brave, or if you're commiserating even over Doctor Who Flux, you can catch up with fellow Time Lords, fellow timeless children, over in the Type 40 Facebook group. If you head over to Facebook and enter Type 40 into the search field, you'll quickly find our group full of generations upon regenerations of Doctor Who fans. They're talking and they're sharing, and now and again they're arguing about Doctor Who past, present, and future. Charlotte, where can people see and hear more from you on social media and on YouTube?
Well, on social media, it would be in the Type 40 Facebook group. I'm there, I'm a member, and now and again I sort of post stuff or comment on posts.
You've been, don't you?
Yeah, and then I'm part of Type 40 Live if you want to see and hear some more madness, which we all get up to on a Thursday, and that's about it.
Fantastic. I love it when somebody can come on and do some of the plugs for me. And you can catch Syfy Lebetkin, the rabbi from another planet, on his YouTube channel, which is just called Syfy Lebetkin. And you can, I think he puts out Doctor Who videos most days, sort of video diary format videos, where he'll talk about the latest crazy theories or ideas that he's had, or review present episodes or Big Finish audios or whatever. Syfy Lebetkin is one of the most prolific and certainly the loudest of Doctor Who voices on YouTube. And you never quite know, as you've probably gathered from the show, you never quite know what he's going to say next, but it's always said with a good heart and with absolute affection, sheer joy for Doctor Who. He's one of the biggest Doctor Who fans that I know. You can catch up with me on Twitter and Instagram as the Spacebook, where I'm sharing, tweeting, and instaring, as well as moaning and groaning now and again about all things geeky inside and outside of the TARDIS. So look for me over there. That about covers it. Just one episode to go, Charlotte. I'm relieved, I have to say. Let us know what you think of it all, whether you think we've got it all right or all wrong. Let us know in the comment section. Get in touch. We'd love to hear if you've been enjoying it all and you don't know what we're talking about. Fair play. You know, we get it. We understand. We're here for you too. We're here for you too. Yeah, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the little bell so you get the notifications going forward. We always have the time if you have the space here at Type 40. But yeah, that is it for this show. Thank you very much. We'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.